Have you ever looked at someone and thought, how did they become this way? Maybe they used to be so kind, so gentle, and now they're cold, cruel, even dangerous. How does a good person turn into a monster? Were they always like this deep down, or did life change them? In this video, we're going deep into the painful truth behind how good people sometimes lose themselves. And trust me, this is something we all need to understand before it happens to someone we love, or even to us. Before someone becomes hardened or cold, they were once soft. Before the anger, before the silence, before the walls they built around themselves, there was kindness. There was light. Welcome to Brain Vital Channel. If you're new here, we're so glad you found us. This is your go-to spot for easy, powerful tips to grow stronger, smarter, and succeed in life. Tired of being pushed around? Want to feel unstoppable and in control? Ready to discover the game-changing secrets that can take you to the next level? Smash that subscribe button and don't forget to hit the bell so you're always in the loop when we drop new videos. This isn't just fun. It's about unlocking your true power. You have a choice. Stay where you are or step up and become the best version of yourself. Now let's continue. Many of the people we call monsters today didn't start out that way. In fact, they were often the ones who cared the most. They were the ones who cried when others were hurt, who tried to fix things that weren't their fault, who smiled to their own pain just to make someone else happy. Think about that child who always wanted to help, the one who shared their food at school even when they didn't have much, the one who stayed up at night listening to their parents argue, wishing they could do something to bring peace, the one who brought home stray animals, who apologized first even when they were the ones hurting. That child was not born a monster. That child was filled with love. Children are born with hope in their hearts. They believe in good. They trust easily. They dream freely. And many of them grow up thinking that if they're kind enough, patient enough, and loving enough, they can make the world better. That's how most monsters begin, with a heart that only wanted peace. But life doesn't always treat gentle souls gently. It's important to understand that people rarely wake up one day and decide to be cruel. No one chooses bitterness for fun. It is often a result of disappointment layer after layer of betrayal, neglect, rejection, or abuse. But before all that pain, there was innocence. There was purity. There was a little girl who used to make handmade cards for her mom's birthday, even if her mom never noticed. There was the boy who used to believe his dad would come back, so he waited by the window every weekend. It is when those hopes are crushed over and over again that something inside begins to shift. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Today, we focus on that beginning, that sweet, unguarded version of a person. Because if we forget that starting point, we risk losing our compassion. We start seeing only the result of pain, not the person behind it. So next time you come across someone who seems angry, bitter, or emotionally distant, take a moment to wonder, who were they before the world hurt them? What dreams did they bury just to survive? What kind of child were they? Understanding this doesn't mean we excuse toxic behavior, but it helps us stay human. It reminds us that behind every monster is a story, and every story has a beginning. How pain changes good people. There comes a time in a person's life when something inside them quietly breaks and nothing is ever the same again. It doesn't always happen in a loud or dramatic way. Sometimes it's slow, silent, invisible to the world. But deep inside, a once kind heart begins to harden. Good people don't just turn cold overnight. Many of them go through constant betrayal, deep heartbreak, or years of abuse. They give and give, believing that love and goodness will come back to them in return. But instead, they are met with silence, rejection, or cruelty. And little by little, they start to wonder, is being good even worth it? Imagine being that friend who is always there for others, but no one shows up when you need help. Or being the child who tries to make everyone happy, only to be yelled at or ignored. Or worse, being someone who trusts only to be lied to and used again and again. After a while, something dangerous begins to grow in the mind, a belief that kindness is weakness. And the more it happens, the louder that message becomes. They begin to associate love with pain and trust with betrayal. Then comes the first snap, that moment when they say, enough. It could be a burst of anger or complete silence. Maybe they shut the door on someone. Maybe they start isolating. Maybe they stop smiling the way they used to. This is what we call the breaking point, the line where a person stops being who they once were and starts changing into someone they never imagined they'd become. For some, it's a form of protection. After all, if being soft leads to hurt, then maybe being hard is safer. If caring too much invites pain, then not caring at all feels better. They shut down emotionally not because they want to be bad, but because they're tired of being broken. Let's be honest, how many of us have reached that point before? It's important to understand that people who snap aren't always evil. Many times, they are deeply wounded. They're reacting to years of invisible pain. They're scared, tired, and alone. But here's the sad part. When a good person reaches their breaking point, people around them only see the change. They don't see the story behind it. They say, "Wow, you've changed." But they don't ask, "What happened to you?" So if you know someone who used to be joyful, loving, and kind, but now seems distant, angry, or cold, don't be so quick to judge. They may not be a monster. They might just be a survivor of repeated pain. And if that someone is you, if you've reached your breaking point, please know that it's okay to feel hurt. But don't let the pain take away the beauty of who you are. You are not weak because you feel deeply. You're strong because you survived. There comes a time in some people's lives when they stop smiling the way they used to, when their laughter fades and their kindness becomes guarded. Not because they've suddenly become bad people, but because life has hurt them so deeply that being kind no longer feels safe. This is where the mask begins. When someone is constantly taken for granted, when every time they show love, they get betrayed, when every time they speak, they're silenced or mocked, they begin to build emotional walls. At first, it's just to protect themselves, to stop the bleeding. But over time, those walls become a full mask, a new personality, one that looks nothing like who they used to be. Some people wear anger as their mask. They realize that when they're angry, no one messes with them. No one takes them for granted anymore. So they raise their voice, they bark at people, they push others away because behind that anger is someone who was once so soft. They got hurt over and over again. Others choose coldness as their mask. They stop replying to messages. They stop hugging. They stop opening up. Not because they don't care, but because caring too much nearly destroyed them. They don't know how to find the balance between loving others and protecting their own heart, so they shut down completely. For some, the mask becomes so convincing that even they start to forget who they were underneath it. They become the very thing they once feared just to feel in control. Maybe they fear being powerless, so they became controlling. Maybe they feared being abandoned, so they now push everyone away first. It's painful to admit, but it's real. But here's the truth. The mask isn't who they truly are. It's just who they became to survive. Behind every tough person is often a soft child who was never protected. Behind every rude person is someone who might have been dismissed too many times. Behind every cold heart is a soul that once loved so deeply and got burned. The danger, however, is when people stay behind a mask for too long. When they stop believing that they can ever be loved without it. When they forget that it's okay to be soft again, in the right places with the right people. So if you're watching this and you built your own mask, please know you're not alone. You're not weak. You were just trying to survive. But don't let the pain of your past rob you of your joy, your softness, your ability to love again. And if you see someone around you who's wearing that mask, look closer. Don't judge them too quickly. There might be a story you don't know, a wound they've never shown, a person they used to be, just waiting to feel safe enough to return. Because behind every mask, there's still a real person hoping someone someday will see them. Sometimes when a good person turns cold or harsh, we're quick to ask, what happened to them? But we rarely ask the harder question, what did the world do to them? The truth is, no one wakes up one day and decides to become a monster. More often than not, it's a slow, painful transformation caused by the society and environment around them. Support is like soil for the human heart. Without it, even the kindest soul can wither. When someone feels invisible, unheard, or unloved, it chips away at their spirit. Maybe they reached out once, twice, maybe even 10 times, but nobody listened. Nobody cared. A child who cries for help but gets ignored learns to stop asking. A teenager who opens up about depression and gets mocked learns to stay silent. An adult who struggles and is judged instead of helped learns to pretend they're okay even when they're breaking inside. When society fails to offer support, it pushes people into loneliness. And in that loneliness, pain festers. That's how good people start to change, not because they want to, but because they feel like they have no other choice. Imagine living in a world where every day feels like a fight to survive, where poverty means you can't dream, trauma means you can't sleep, and family pressure crushes you with expectations you never asked for. Some people grow up in homes filled with shouting, abuse, or silence that's even louder. Others carry scars from things they've never told anyone about: loss, violence, rejection. These experiences don't just hurt, they shape you. Poverty can make someone feel hopeless, like their worth is tied to what they don't have. Trauma can leave wounds that never fully heal. And family pressure, especially in cultures that demand perfection, can make people feel like failures no matter how hard they try. When life keeps beating someone down, it's not shocking that they eventually fight back. But the world doesn't call it survival. It calls it anger. It calls it bad attitude. It calls it being a monster. Perhaps the saddest part is this: people often ignore suffering until it becomes dangerous. When someone is quiet and hurting, they're called dramatic or too emotional. But when that pain explodes, when they snap, lash out, or withdraw completely, only then do people start to pay attention. By then, the damage has been done. We live in a society that's quick to judge, but slow to understand, that sees behavior, but not the story behind it, that notices the monster, but never the suffering that created it. So next time you see someone changing in a way that scares you, don't just ask what's wrong with them. Ask what have they been through. Sometimes all it takes to keep a good person from turning cold is someone who actually cares. It's easy to look at someone who acts cruel, distant, or heartless and immediately call them a monster. But what if they're not monsters at all? What if they're simply wounded, broken by life, by pain, by betrayal? Sometimes we judge the behavior without ever asking why it started in the first place. Let's take a moment to think about this more deeply. When we call someone a monster, we strip away their humanity. We paint them as evil, beyond saving, or born to destroy. But most people weren't always this way. They weren't born cold or cruel. Many were once gentle souls, dreamers, givers, and lovers of peace. So what happened? The label monster can sometimes be a lazy way of avoiding the truth. It's easier to blame than to understand. But understanding doesn't mean we accept bad behavior. It means we see the full picture. Let's be real. Pain changes people. Some people who are harsh now were once deeply loving. Some who lie or manipulate were once honest, but got burned for it too many times. That girl who shuts everyone out? Maybe she was once trusting, but got betrayed again and again. That boy who lashes out in anger? Maybe that's the only way he knows how to be heard after years of silence. We don't always see the scars people carry. Some are hidden. Emotional wounds can be invisible but just as real as physical ones. And when those wounds are left untreated, they can turn into anger, bitterness, and fear disguised as aggression. Let's be clear. Being hurt doesn't give anyone the right to hurt others. Understanding someone's pain doesn't mean we ignore the damage they cause. Accountability is still important. But when we look beyond the surface, we gain perspective. We start to see that some people became what they are because no one helped them when they were still soft, still kind, still good. Some people became cold because warmth only ever brought them pain. When we see someone acting out, it's worth asking, what shaped this person? What did they survive? It doesn't make the harm right, but it makes make sense. So the next time you want to call someone a monster, take a step back. Ask yourself, what if they're just wounded? What if life changed them before they could protect their heart? And more importantly, how many people around us are hurting silently, slowly turning into someone they don't even recognize, just to survive? Maybe what they need isn't a label, but a little more understanding. Sometimes the most dangerous people were once the most loving ones. Let's not wait until it's too late to see the pain behind the mask. When a person who was once good becomes someone we no longer recognize, it's easy to write them off, to say, they've changed, they're lost. But what if they're not? What if, beneath the coldness, the harsh words, and the distant eyes, the soft-hearted person is still there wounded, but waiting for a chance to return? You see, redemption is possible, but it often starts with something simple, yet powerful, being seen. Sometimes, all it takes is one person to pause and say, "I see you. I know you're hurting. I understand." Those words can break down walls that years of pain have built. Because for many of these monsters, the truth is they didn't want to become like this. Life pushed them, and no one noticed. But when someone finally cares, it opens a door to healing, a door to redemption. Love doesn't always come wrapped in grand gestures. Sometimes it shows up as quiet presence sitting with someone in silence when they can't explain the pain. Sometimes it's choosing not to give up on them, even when they push you away. Real love sees the brokenness, but believes in who the person can still become. Many people who found healing from deep pain often say the same thing. Someone loved me when I didn't love myself. That love became the light that led them back. Some find redemption through therapy, a safe space where they can unpack years of trauma without being judged. They learn to understand themselves, to forgive their past, and to reshape their future. Therapy teaches people that they are more than what happened to them. It reminds them that healing is possible even if the process is slow. Others experience a spiritual awakening, a moment where everything shifts. Maybe they encounter a message that speaks directly to their soul. Maybe they break down one night and pray like never before. Whatever it is, something clicks, and they begin the journey back to who they were always meant to be. Let's be honest, change doesn't happen overnight. People don't just wake up and become good again. It takes time. They may fall back into old habits. They may resist help, but every small step toward healing is a victory, and they need people around them who won't give up at the first sign of relapse. So, can they be redeemed? Yes, but only if we stop seeing them as monsters and start seeing them as humans who've been through more than we know. Everyone deserves a second chance, and sometimes that second chance starts with us choosing to see the light in someone, even when the darkness is louder. Sometimes we look at people who've changed, those who used to be soft-spoken, kind, helpful, and we wonder, what happened to them? But maybe the better question is, where were we when they were changing? The truth is, people don't just turn cold overnight. Bitterness, anger, silence, these are usually signs of wounds that went unnoticed. A cheerful person who suddenly grows quiet. A helping hand that slowly pulls back. A heart once full of love that now feels empty. These are not random changes. They are signs, warnings, silent cries for help. If we don't care for people while they're still good, they may not stay that way. And this isn't just about others. It's about us too. Every human being has a breaking point. Some people are just one heartbreak away from shutting down, one betrayal away from no longer trusting, one moment of being unheard away from deciding to never speak again. We often say, they changed, but what if they were simply exhausted? What if they didn't want to become that way? But life gave them no other choice. Be kind, not because people always deserve it. Be kind because you don't know the war they're fighting. Some people are holding on by a thread, hoping someone would notice before they give up on being good. You might be the reason someone still believes in kindness, or the reason they stop. And now, I want to ask you something. Have you looked inward lately? Ask yourself, am I turning into someone I promised I'd never become? Maybe you used to be joyful, but now you're bitter. Maybe you once forgave easily, but now you hold grudges like they protect you. Maybe you used to love freely, but now you push everyone away. If that sounds like you, please understand this. You're not a bad person. You're a wounded one, and you can heal. But healing begins with awareness. It begins with stopping long enough to say, this is not who I want to be. This is not how I want to live. You see, when we ignore our own pain, we begin to project it. We become short with others, distrustful, cold. But when we face our pain with honesty and love, we can slowly start to feel again. We can return to who we once were, or better yet, become who we were always meant to be. So this is a gentle warning and a soft reflection. Care for the good people in your life. Don't wait until they become unrecognizable. And most importantly, don't lose yourself trying to survive. You're allowed to rest. You're allowed to cry. You're allowed to feel. Just don't stop being human. Don't stop being you. Monsters are not always born. Sometimes they're created by pain, by life, by the people around them. So, before you judge someone's bitterness, ask yourself, what did they survive to become this way? And more importantly, how can we stop good people from losing themselves in the first place? Thank you for watching. If this video touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more thought-provoking stories and deep conversations.